All right, so we finished through 10 yesterday. Number 11 is a great place to start because there's not 2 of these on the test, actual test, guys, but I put 2 of them on the review for more practice. All right. Do you remember where I suggested we should start yesterday on one of these? This is SLO review packet. My suggestion was start with the midline, okay? If it's going down to -20 and up to 60, what's the middle? 20, right? Okay, so that means the vertical shift is up 20, and you're going to have a plus 20 on the back of the equation. Are we good so far? Amplitude, how far above and below that? 40, so where's that going to be? Out in front. Now, yeah, I think the directions to number 10 said to do a sine graph, and I'm thinking that's probably how it is on the test, that it's a little confusing and it's not. This would be really easy as a cosine graph, right? So let's do it as a sine to practice the harder kind. Do you want to do a left shift or right shift? You want to do right? So you want to say it starts over here? Or you want to do a -1 starting here? No, I think on the test it asks you to do the harder one. So let's practice the sine graph. You did a -1, so right there? Okay. Can I do a left shift? Would that kill anybody? Look right here. Isn't this one? That's a sine shape? Yes, it should be the same. It's just going to be slightly. Okay. So if I do a left shift, I need to figure out what that is. What's the period? The period is 3. Do you have to go look at the sine part of it to do the period? No, look anywhere. One complete cycle goes from 3 to 6 or 6 to 9, so the period is 3. So the B is going to be 2 pi over 3. Lovely. Okay, so we're going to have sine 2 pi over 3 x. Now, okay, so halfway in here would be -1.5. Anybody know what half of -1.5 would be? Yes, a lovely -0.75. How are we going to say it shifted to the left 0.75? That look good? What did you have, Patrick? You had a negative. The phase shift would have been to the right 0.75. Yep, 1 is not right. Okay, that's another option. All right, moving on before we get bogged down on one question. There's one of these. Deep breath. Okay. Charlie's on a Ferris wheel. Okay. His friend is timing the ride. He starts the watch when he's at the highest point. Oh, good. He starts at a maximum. That's the good news, right? Okay. 22 feet in the air. The wheel, okay, so the max is at 22. The wheel has a diameter of 14. I always have to draw the wheel over here. Its diameter is 14. So if he is 22 feet in the air, to the ground would mean 8 feet off is the bottom, yes? And it means if it's 14 feet across, the radius is 7, which is the, anybody remember what amplitude? Okay, right there it's going to say justify. Okay, I'm going to say amplitude of 7 because radius of Ferris wheel is 7. Okay, not taking time to write complete sentence. Period. The period is 40 seconds, right? Because 1 revolution every 40 seconds. Okay, so what goes in the equation? 2 pi over 40 or pi over 20, good. Okay. It's just doing this, yes? 40 seconds. Okay, now we got to find some crazy business, right? Okay, if I average those two, add and divide by 2, I get 15. What does that mean? Okay, it is the middle is 15. That is the vertical shift. Okay, you told me the radius was going to be 7. Does that work? 8 plus 7 is 15. 22 minus 7. 7 above, 7 below. That goes out in front. What did you tell me you want to call this? Cosine. Do we need a phase shift? Someone was very generous to you and said we started timing at time 0, right? At the top. So we don't need a phase shift. Okay, now we could check this, graph it on our calculator and check. Or really, you could just do it from the home screen, but it's probably better to check. 7 cosine pi over 20 times x. I'm a little worried. Did I need an extra parenthesis around that? We'll find out in a minute. Plus 15. Okay, look at what I wrote. What is my window according to what I wrote over here? 0 to something for x, right? 40, 60, I don't know. What about y? 0 to 25, would it be beautiful? Okay, I should see this shape. I went out past 40, so it started another cycle. The question is, where is his height at 11? So if I've graphed it, I can just do trace 11. Okay, I got 13.9. Got to be in radians. You could have also just gone to the home screen and typed 7 cosine. Not 2, just pi. Kidding. Pi divided by 20 times 11, close parenthesis, plus 15. But you don't get to check that your graph equation is right then. Why did I hit graph? I meant to hit enter. Did we get the same answer? Was it 13.9 both ways? Because I can't remember that long. Okay, 13.9 feet. Okay, you going to be okay on that one? It's not as hard as some we did in class, right? All right, the next couple questions are on inverse unit circle. Guys, you can just about guarantee that I'm going to ask you a fourth quadrant question. And when you answer in the fourth quadrant, you have to renumber it, remember? Okay? Which ones are okay in the fourth quadrant, according to this right here? Sine and tangent, right? Inverse sine and inverse tangent. Okay. So, here's the first question. Inverse sine. Where is the sine? Negative square root of 2 over 2. Okay, it's in quadrant 4 at 7 pi over 4. Can you call it 7 pi over 4? No. You're going to call it negative pi over 4. Okay, where's the cosine negative 1/2? Cosine is over here, right? Isn't it at 2 pi over 3? Am I remembering from the unit circle right? I can look. Nope, it's got to be in radians. Look right here. All of this stuff, radians. And you're not supposed to be using your calculator to do these. People had a little habit of that. Okay, this says create and complete a sketch in the appropriate quadrant. Okay, arctangent is negative. What quadrant does that have to be in? Arctangent is only defined in first and fourth, so it has to be, if it's negative, it's in 4, right? This is y over x, or opposite over adjacent. Which one's negative? The 15. If we want to find the sine, we need to find hypotenuse. Can you trust me? It comes out 17 if you remember your parentheses. Okay. So what is the answer for the sine for this question? Is everybody good? Opposite over hypotenuse or y over r? Any questions? Okay, that's day one. That's Monday's test. We're still doing trig when we pick up Tuesday. These are supposed to be easy. Please don't let them be confusing to you. We're using these guys right here. These. Does this look like one of these guys? Does it say 2 sine cosine? Was that what it says for the first one? Okay. So on the sheet, it says 2 sine theta cosine theta equals sine of 2 theta, yes? Okay, so what are we going to put in instead of theta, though? So when we put a 6x in here, it's going to simplify to 12x. I probably would count it right if you wrote 2 6x like that, okay? All right, what about this one? 2 cosine squared minus 1. 2 cosine squared. 2 cosine squared minus 1 is cosine of 2 theta. Okay, I gotta find the question again. So this is cosine of 2 theta. Only instead of a theta, we had a what in there? 3 theta, or cosine of 6. Okay. Easy, yes? I hope. Number 17 is not as much fun. It's kind of a complicated question with multiple right answers. Okay. It says, guys, it says right here, use the sum and difference. That's your hint. How are you going to start this out? What's the rule for cosine of A minus B? Someone read it to me. Cosine A minus B. Cosine, cosine plus sine, sine. Okay, what goes in those spots? A and B are x and 3 pi over 2. Not negative, right? Because it was minus that came with here. All right, what's the next part? Do you remember? Yes, look at your unit circle. Good, good, good. And on the unit circle, 3 pi over 2 has a cosine of 0, I think, yes? And it has a sine of -1, yes? So what's left? This is 0, right? Times 0. So we have a negative times a sine of x. So we have negative sine of x. But now it says choose all your choices. Okay, we got this one. But I'm thinking we also need to check these weird rules in here, yes? What is this one also equal to? Does everybody see what I'm talking about? Right here on the sheet, it says if you have a negative sign, it's the same as the sign of a negative x. Okay, so choose those carefully. All right, this is nobody's favorite anything, I know that, but it's on the final. Okay, Pythagorean theorem gives me, watch your signs. I went left, up, hypotenuse. Right, up, hypotenuse. One negative in here, right? Okay. The sine and cosine from this one. 7/25 and negative 24/25. Then it says go over to B, beta, this one. Sine 5/13 and cosine. Okay. Now I need what is the rule for this? And it says to just write out the identity first time. What, A minus B, is that what we're doing? Sine cosine minus cosine sine. Okay. Sine cosine minus cosine sine. Did I do it right? Did someone check in me? Okay. Now we're going to put what in? Numbers. What's the sign? Cosine? Yes, because it's the cosine of the other one. Thank you. Cosine of this one minus cosine, which is negative 24/25, and sine, which is 5/13. Did I get that right eventually, guys, after 3 tries? I think that's 84/425, maybe? Is that right? 325. Yep, thanks. And this is going to turn out to be plus 120/325. Anybody? 204/325. Okay. I hope somebody's checking that. Okay. I know it's a lot of work, but it's really not that hard to get that one right, is it, guys? All right. I know. What about this one? Guys, this is not a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 test, remember? So that question is probably worth multiple points because I can break apart like one for this, one for this, one for this. So just remember that when you're deciding which one you want to skip. Don't skip it. All right. Do you remember how to do this? Yes, it factors. It's like 2 something squared minus a something minus 1. How would that factor? 2 something with a 1 and a something with a 1 and what? Yeah, we need to have a -2 and a +1 in order to add up and get a -1 in the middle. So how is it actually factoring over here? 2 sine x plus 1 and sine x minus 1. So that means we get what? Sine of x equals -1/2, or okay, this says exact solutions, all of them between only 0 and 2 pi. We don't need a plus or minus 2 pi n, right? Okay, where's the sine -1/2? 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. How did I do? Okay. And the sine is +1 at pi over 2. Is that it? 3 answers? That's kind of weird. That's right, yes. All right, we're almost done with the trig concepts. 1 plus cotangent squared. It says, identify any Pythagorean identities. What are the Pythagorean identities? I think they're even labeled that on your unit circle sheet, aren't they? Here, look. Pythagorean relations. We need one of these. Which one do we need? 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. Is that what we need? No? Yes? Right here, the one we need is 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. Because it says, justify all steps by showing and identifying a Pythagorean identity. There's my Pythagorean identity. And then just trade this out for a cosecant. Yes, it wants you to identify. because like 2 points for this question, and one is that you are showing some work. And then it's sine squared, cosine squared, secant. Why am I not worrying about trading anything else out along the way? It's all multiply now, right? We can just hopefully cancel some jazz. What is this one going to be? Sine squared times a sine squared. That's looking like that's going to be gone right there, right? Cosine squared. And the last one, secant, is 1 over plane cosine. I lost all my thetas, and I'm not going to count you wrong if you lose your thetas, but we get what? Just cosine of theta. So I showed some work, and I wrote down the Pythagorean identity, okay? All right, then we switch to conics. All right, and eccentricity jazz. Okay, what are we going to do to figure out this one? X squared, I move everything else over to the other side, right? Do I need to even complete the square on this one? X squared, take out a -2, and I'd have y plus 5. So I have x minus 0 squared, or just an x squared, I don't care how you write it. What is that? That's the form I'm looking for, and it is a... Guys, it doesn't have a squared on only one thing. It's got to have a squared on both x and y to be any of those other things, right? Oh, you're scaring me. All right, well, tomorrow our priority will be finishing up this review, okay? And then we'll spend the rest of the time doing limits.